Hello, everyone. I am so glad to see you all in the chat already. You guys are ready to dive in today's content, and I'm so excited to see you. We are going to be talking about interview questions and answers you need to be ready for 2020. I'm going to be sharing with you some questions that you're going to potentially have in your next interview and how to build your interview confidence. Now, I have to just preface all of this with I've had a really bad cold for the past 2 weeks, so I'm probably sounding a little bit stuffy. Hopefully, I don't have a cough attack here during our live stream. If I do, I'll just mute myself and cough it out if I need to. Thank you everyone so much for being here. I can see that a lot of you are already in the chat. If you're joining us live today and you can hear me and you can see me and you're super excited for today's content, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Also, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. I either go live or I post a new video every single week, mostly on Tuesdays. And if you want to be able to get all the good content that comes your way, make sure you subscribe. Also, hit the thumbs up button down below. If you are joining us on the replay, feel free to do the same thing and also give me in the chat or in the comments, where are you coming to us from today? Now, we have already had a ton of you jump in and tell me where you're from. I love seeing you guys interact and talk to each other. I know that we have some big fans here in the chat. I'm going to say hi to a couple of you. Kimberly, as always, from Jacksonville, Florida is here. Hello, Kimberly. How are you doing? Hopefully you're doing well. Kevin is here from Toronto. We have someone here from Sweden. So exciting to have you here. Harold is here from Bogota, Colombia. That's what I love about live streaming is I'm here in the United States. It's 10 a.m. my time, Mountain Standard Time, and you guys are all over the world. I love that we can connect today and I can share some of my knowledge and experience with you to help you in your job search and land more interviews and better job offers. Looks like we have David here from the United Kingdom. Hello, David. Someone is here from South Africa. And you also say that you just signed up for you're probably on my email list a couple hours ago and you have an interview tomorrow. We are going to get you ready for your interview. I know that I have a couple of you in here also that have interviews coming up. Hello, Steve. So happy you're here. I am going to get to your questions, Steve. I have a couple words to share with you before we finish today. So glad you guys are here. David is here. Miranda. We have Sue is here. Oh, so many fantastic people. Greg, hello. I'm so glad that you could join us. Anyway, I could talk to you guys all day long. Let's jump into the content for today. If you guys didn't know, it's Valentine's week here in the United States. And let me know, do you guys, wherever else you live, if you're not in the United States, do you celebrate Valentine's Day? I wore my heart shirt for you because I wanted to show you guys that I love you. I'm so happy that you guys are here. I'm thrilled to share some time with you today. I also want to share with you our Valentine's Day, hence my Valentine's shirt, flash sale for our Career Advancement Toolkit. Now, Tori, my team member, is in the chat as always. She's going to be collecting all of your questions for me. She's also going to be sharing links and resources. We have a bunch of resources to share with you today to make sure you succeed in your next interview. So she will be popping links into the chat. So make sure you keep an eye on that. Also take notes during this live stream because we have a lot to cover. But in addition to that, before we jump into the content, we have our Valentine's flash sale running on the Career Advancement Toolkit. Now, normally we only do these flash sales for a couple days, but Valentine's Day is Friday here in the States. So we have until Friday this week. So you actually have 3 days to grab the Career Advancement Toolkit. I'm going to show you guys a little bit about it as we go throughout the live stream today. We've added some fantastic resources for you. And if you are already a Toolkit user or in my World Class Career Academy program, make sure you send a message to Tori to let her know so that we can get the extra content to you because and Tori will also pop her email address in there as well. We have some fantastic content planned for you today. Now, I want to know really quickly, and I share slides a lot, so we are going to start out right with a slide here. What is the hardest part about job interviews for you? So when you go to a job interview, what do you feel is the thing that you struggle with the most? Type it into the chat. If you are even listening to the replay, type into the comments, what is the hardest part about job interviews? Now, I want to share with you what my Facebook community said this week when I asked them this question, and you guys can share your experiences in the chat as well. So Ediana says those curveball questions, and I'm sure you guys have had those curveball questions. She says one of the questions she had before is, how many golf balls can you fit in a plane? Now, those types of questions just drive me crazy, right? I don't know if it's the interviewer trying to see how fast you can think on your feet, or what your humor or character sense is, which it probably is, but that's one of those strange questions. Christine said, for me, it's appearing confident. So when she's nervous in the interview, it's really hard to feel confident, isn't it? Veronica says that trying to be perfect. And yes, whenever we go into a job interview, we're always trying to be our best, right? Which you should. But then sometimes trying to be super perfect can kind of crush your interview confidence, can't it? And then Jurasam says the uncertainty of the unknown. So let me know in the chat, what is the hardest part about interviews for you? I'm going to kind of tell you guys what some of your comments are. Charlotte says unexpected questions. Yes, those are the worst. The real Francisco, hello, says communicating what's on my mind. Sheila says answering the star questions. We're going to talk about that. Kimberly says weakness question. We're actually going to talk about that today too. Noelle says getting them. Yep. Getting interviews is a challenge. So we're going to cover kind of how to help you be successful in your next interview and some of these questions that might come up. So take notes along the way. Also, if you have any questions, make sure you pop them into the chat for Tori. She's going to be collecting all of your questions for me, and then I will be answering them throughout the live stream here. And I got to say hi to Tori. Thanks, Tori, so much for being here. She knows that I have 4 kids, and we've all had a really bad flu bug this past week. Everyone's at school now, and everyone seems to be okay. So we are going to hopefully get through this live stream without coughing up a storm. So I want to introduce you guys to kind of the very first question here that I want you to be ready for when your next interview comes up. So again, we're talking about interview questions and answers to be ready for. Now, one of the first things, I'm going to share that with you guys in just a second. One of the first things that you're likely going to get asked in an interview is any situational based question. Now, I know one of you mentioned earlier, Sheila mentioned earlier about star interview questions. And if you guys have been on an interview before, you know that these questions come up. They are likely to come up no matter where you're at or what type of interview you're on. Now, let me preface before I actually jump into this. I want to preface these questions with the fact, and if you guys have ever seen me on a live stream, or if you are a job seeker, you probably know this already, but I want to just mention it again. You need to make sure before you even jump into your interview that you've researched the company. Okay, you need to know everything you can about the company and the position. You need to know what they are looking for in their ideal candidate, and then you need to base your answers to their questions on that position. So they might ask you a question like, what's your greatest strength? And you might have a strength that you want to talk about, but if it doesn't relate to that position, you have to change your strength, okay? You have to make sure that it is tailored specifically for that position. And same with weaknesses, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So again, making sure that you understand the company and that you understand the position before you even go into the interview. Now, again, let's jump back to question number 1, or the first type of question that you might get is situational based questions. Now, I want to know in the chat, let me know, just give me a yes. And if you're watching this on a replay, let me know in the comments below the video. Give me a yes if you have had these type of questions. Now, a situational based question is also what we would call a behavioral based question. So interviewers are asking this question because they want to see, how did you react in a certain situation before before, because they want to know if you come up in that situation again, in that new position that you might be jumping into, how are you going to react, or how are you going to solve the problem? So let me give you an example of how these questions come up. So they're basically like, describe a situation where you worked with a difficult team member, and what did you do to overcome this? You might even get, tell me about a time that you handled a difficult situation. You might even get something about describe a time where you made a mistake on a project, and what did you do to recover from this? So these questions are a little bit more difficult to answer, but I actually like these questions better because they allow you to really think about a story. So you're now having to think about, when did this happen in my workplace, or in my education, or in my community, or whatever it might be, and how can I tell them a story about this? So again, they're always wanting to know a situation that occurred that you can talk about. Now, let me know again if you've ever had this question before. It looks like, or these types of questions, it looks like a lot of you have said yes. Kimberly says yes. I see a ton of yeses. Terry says yes. Hello. Latha says hi. Hello. Greg says long time out of the workforce, 2 years. Yeah, it looks like a lot of you guys understand these situational based questions. Now I'm going to share another slide with you so that you can kind of see how to answer these questions. So when it comes to answering situational based or behavioral based questions, you always want to use the STAR approach. Now the STAR approach, for those that have been in the job market for a while, you probably know this, right? But I want to kind of break it down for you so that when you go into the interview, you're not tensing up, and you're not getting nervous, and you're not stuttering, and you're not, freaking out, right? Which most of us do. But when we go into an interview, if you can think of it in terms of breaking it down to a simple story, just think about stories, okay? When you were kids, my kids love stories. We love stories. As human beings, we want someone to tell us a good story, right? That's all you're going to be doing, is telling the interviewer a good story. So let me break it down in terms of how you look at the STAR approach. So the S and the T, we're going to start with that. I look at the S and the T as the beginning of your story. So this is the situation that you encountered, and then the tasks that you used during this situation. Okay, then the R stands for, the A stands for the action. So what action did you take because of the situation, and then the tasks that were at hand, and then what was the result? So again, if you can think of it in terms of, my story needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and how can I explain that to the interviewer? So again, this little slide is just a quick way for you to see how you can break your story down. Okay, I want to jump really quickly to question number 2. So this is kind of the second type of question that you might get asked, is why are you the best candidate? Now, this question actually comes in a few different forms, and I want you to jot this down if you can, if you're in a place where you can take notes. Other ways that this question might be asked is, why should we hire you? And they might even say, well, why are you a good fit for this position? Okay. So anytime that they are asking why you are the best candidate, why should they hire you, why are you a good fit, the focus is on you. So now what you have to do is you now need to tell them another story about why you are the best candidate. So think in terms of, what types of challenges is the company facing? What types of characteristics are they looking for in their ideal candidate? Remember, I mentioned earlier that you need to know this before you even go into the interview, or else you're not going to be able to even tailor your interview responses to what they need. So again, you're going to go in with that knowledge, and you're going to tell them, I'm the best candidate for this position because, and you're going to bring something from the job posting or from something that you know about the position, and you're going to bring that right into your answer. So again, you're now taking that knowledge that you have, and you're now bringing that into your answer. Of course, you're also saying, well, what what do I do, or what have I done in the past that really matches up with this position? So again, that why are you the best candidate position, make sure that you're looking at how your skills and your expertise and your accomplishments match up with that position. Now, the third type of question that you really want to make sure that you are super on top of here is, why do you want to work here? So now the focus is on the company. So now we're not talking about you anymore. We're now talking about the company. So now you're thinking about, why do I want to work for this company? And I get, on comments, I get these all the time from people. They're like, I want to work here because I needed the job, or I need a paycheck. I've got to pay my bills. I like the company. And those types of answers don't cut it. You have to get deep with them. You have to really tell them, why do you want to work here? Now, the other way that this question might come out is, why do you want this job? So anytime that you are talking about that, why you want to work for that company, or why you want this job, you are now focusing on the company. So here, what you want to do before the interview even starts is, again, look at the job posting, look at what the company's mission is, their values, why are they hiring for that position in the first place, and then mention that in the job interview. This is really going to impress them. You don't want to have any general responses to this question like, I want to work here because I've always wanted to work for this company, or I want to work here because I've heard great things. Yes, you can say I've heard great things, but what great things did you hear? And why did those great things inspire you to apply for the position? So again, you need to get a little bit deeper with this question. Now, I want to know from you, what is your biggest takeaway so far? So we've covered 3 questions. I have 2 more to cover with you. What is your biggest takeaway so far from what I've mentioned today? So is it focusing on the company in your answers? Is it focusing on you? What are you learning from today's live stream? And is this helpful for you? I know that there were a lot of you that had questions, that have interviews coming up. So hopefully this gets you nice and ready for your interview. But I want to know, what is your biggest takeaway so far? And while you guys are typing into the chat, I want to show you really quickly a couple resources for you. And Tori will pop this into the comments and the chat for you as well. The very first resource I want to show, if you guys do not have this yet, it's the interview guide cheat sheet. So this is a free resource that you can download today, where this is going to give you step-by-step answers to the most popular interview questions. So a lot of them we're talking about today, but this is almost in written form. So it's a quick guide that you can reference, and it shows you questions that you might be asked. But the kicker here is you need to tailor your response. So again, you're not going to be, you're not going to give the exact responses that I've shared with you. I'm just showing you how to answer these common questions, and then you tailor them. So you'll just click on the download now button when it pops up, and then enter your name and your email address, and it's actually going to come straight to your inbox. Now, the other resource I want to share with you is the Career Advancement Toolkit. Now, we have a flash sale running for the toolkit, and my team and I put together a super awesome kind of at a glance resource for you. Let me turn my camera on so you guys can see me here. So my team and I put together a quick resource for you where you can actually see what's inside the toolkit here. And because I have a lot of people that are always like, well, what's in it? What do I even get? And this is kind of everything that you get inside the toolkit. We have templates, we have exercises, we have examples, we have guides, we have basically everything in there to help you move forward in your career. So a lot of times, this is all a job seeker needs, is just this toolkit, and it helps them. I get emails all the time about people that have just used this information just to land an interview for their ideal position, and then to follow up on the interview. Now, the difference between this and anything else that you'll find on the internet now is these are all professionally written. So I've worked with a team of career coaches, resume writers, LinkedIn experts, all sorts of people to put this product together for job seekers. Very professionally written, all the follow-up letters that you could use or need in the job search process. And then we also have a bunch of bonuses in here. So we have the LinkedIn Profile Essentials Starter Pack. So again, this is going to help you with your summary and your LinkedIn headline. We have the perfect cover letter how-to guide. I have a lot of people that struggle with writing cover letters. We also have the ultimate guide to surviving your job search. So this is going to help you develop some tools and techniques to overcome the frustration of the job search and that overwhelming feeling you get when you're searching for a job and you're not getting results. And then this is what I'm most excited to show you guys today is the bonus video lesson. So this is what I told my anyone that has already purchased the Career Toolkit or any of my World Class Career Academy students. If you guys have not yet seen these bonus lessons, email Tori and she'll put her email in the chat for you so that you can jump on over and we can make sure that you're added to the video lessons and you can start watching those. It basically shows you exactly how to use the toolkit, what to say in your templates, all sorts of good yummy stuff. So again, that's our Valentine's flash sale for you. So make sure you take a look at that. Now let's jump into, I want to jump into our fourth question type that you need to be ready for. And a lot of you guys mentioned this in the chat. But I also want to see what are you guys saying is your biggest takeaway. Kimberly says, focusing on the company and getting deep with your answers. Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Sharing as much detail as you can without oversharing, right? When we go into an interview, we don't want to share our personal life. They don't want to know what we ate for lunch, or they don't want to know where we went for dinner the night before, or that our child is home sick or whatever. They want to know what your life looks like on a professional level. So we're going to share deep, good information about that. Brenda, hello. So glad that you could make it. Brenda says, how do I describe a weakness that isn't too cliche? Oh, I love this. I'm going to show you guys a fantastic resource. In fact, I'm going to, I forgot to pull up the link, but I'll pull it up while I'm talking today about this. Let's jump into the fourth question here. So the fourth question, and this comes based off of Brenda. You mentioned, I don't want to talk about a weakness that that is cliche, right? And I totally get that. So when it comes to an interview, most likely you are going to have a question about your strengths and your weaknesses. So when it comes to this is a question I get all the time from people. They say, Heather, how the heck do I mention a weakness? I don't want to talk about a weakness, right? I don't want to mention something that I'm not good at. But here's the reality when it comes to this question. You need to mention something that is your weakness, okay? But when it comes to that, yes, mention something that you're not good at, or maybe a time that you made a mistake. Again, this could take on the question. If they say, tell me about a time you made a mistake, you want to really mention how you made a mistake or what your weakness is. But to overcome having to share that, you also want to mention what are you doing now to kind of prevent that from ever happening again? And what did you learn from that experience? So if you can show that you're making progress in some way with a weakness, and also the other thing when it comes to the weakness question is you don't want to mention a weakness that relates to the job. Never mention something that relates to the job. For example, if I'm applying for an accounting position, I'm never going to say, well, I'm not very good at data analysis, or I'm not very good at budgets, right? You're going to mention a weakness that has nothing to do with you being an accountant. But then because you don't want it to be cliche, you're not going to say something like, oh, I'm a hard worker, or, I tend to put things on the back burner or whatever. I procrastinate. You're not going to mention those types of answers. You will mention a real weakness and then talk about what you're doing to overcome that weakness. Now, when it comes to the strength that you mentioned, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, needs to relate to the position. So again, remember I said earlier, you're not going to mention some strength that, it might be your strength, but if it doesn't relate to that job, you just wasted a whole question explaining something that does not matter to them. So you always want to pick a strength that relates directly to the job. And where do we find that? How do we find that information? in the job posting, right? So you're going to scour the job posting for something in there that you can say, ooh, they really need someone that does this, and I'm actually really good at that. I'm going to mention that in an interview, and not only that, I'm going to mention a story about that, okay? Again, those stories are super, super key. Now, I want to show you guys a quick resource. Again, this is a free resource. Tori, I forgot to share this resource with you, so I will pop this into the chat for all of you. This is the 16 personalities. If you guys have not yet seen this, I love this because it's such a fantastic resource to learn a little bit more about yourself and to make sure that you are not answering those questions in a weird way, okay? The strengths and the weaknesses questions. If you do not know your personality type, you're gonna go through and do the personality test. It takes like 10 minutes, actually maybe 7 minutes. Whenever I do this in a workshop, most people are done in like 10 minutes with this. It gives you your personality type. It's free. It's very, very similar to Myers-Briggs. If you, Myers-Briggs will give you the same results if you've taken that. But if you don't want to, shell out the $50 that Myers-Briggs costs, you can go to this free website. And let me just pick on, let me just pick on one of these personalities. So I'm going to pick on the architect for a second. And I want to show you, once you get to a personality, you can jump over to where it says strengths and weaknesses. And then this is where this gives you ideas for what can you talk about in the interview, okay? So for example, if I'm an INTJ-A, okay, or the architect personality type, I can go through and I can say, oh, okay, so, and this is not going to be accurate for everyone. It's pretty close. What I have found is most people that take this, it's a pretty close indication of what you're good at and what you're not so good at. So, but take it with a grain of salt. You're not going to be like, oh my goodness, this is me to a T, but it will fit pretty closely. So for example, let's say that I wanted to talk about a strength in an interview. Well, if I'm having a hard time coming up with my strength, I could jump over to the 16 personalities website and I can look at what my strengths and weaknesses are based on my personality, and I can pick one of those. So for example, this one says quick, imaginative, and strategic mind. So it gives you even some information that you could mention, and then you can say, oh yeah, I am really good at that. It does relate to the position. Let me think about a time where I can mention this in the interview. Like I can share a story about this. Okay. And then you think about a situation where you did exhibit your strength before. Now, let me scroll down really quickly and I'll show you. They have weaknesses in here as well. So if you're having a hard time picking a weakness, and there's something from here that you can grab. So for example, some of these you don't want to talk about. I'm not going to mention in an interview that I'm arrogant. I'm definitely not going to mention that I'm judgmental. Maybe I could mention, oh, okay, I am sometimes overly analytical. And I think that's an okay weakness to talk about. I could even, this says loathe highly structured environments. I probably don't want to mention that either, but I could find something on this list like overly analytical, and I could talk about that. But I also want to mention, if I'm mentioning this as a weakness, I also want to say, this is what I'm doing to combat that, or this is what I've done to improve. Keep it in the past, of course, something that's happened, but keep it in the near future. Like you don't want it to be something that you had a weakness for 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. So hopefully that gives you guys a good indication of how you can pick your strengths and your weaknesses if you have a question on that. Okay, let's jump into the last question that you're going to get, and I'm not joking, you will get this, and then we will also jump into, I want to make sure that I'm answering your guys' questions here. I know that we've had a lot of fantastic questions come in. Okay, question 5. Tell me about yourself. Now let me know in the chat, give me a yes down below. Or if you're listening to this on the replay, give me a yes in the comments. Have you had this question before? Tell me about yourself. Now, this question seems so casual, doesn't it? And it's so vague that you're like, well, what do you want me to tell you? So I'm going to give you guys just a quick, simple formula. I don't have a slide for this, so you're going to need to write it down. I want to give you a quick, simple formula for how you can answer this question. Normally, it's the very first question that comes up in an interview. And really, interviewers are asking this because they're just kind of trying to get things going. They want to break the ice a little bit. They want to see, like, what are you going to say? Are you going to go off into left field and start talking about your personal life? Or are you going to keep it structured and concise? And are you going to tell them a good story about yourself? So again, it looks like a lot of you are saying yes. David says yes. Steve's had this question before. Nicole's had it. Kevin says yes. I don't think there's anyone. Noelle says yes, and I've asked it before. I don't think there's anyone on planet Earth that is interviewing for jobs that has never had this question before. If you haven't, I'll be really surprised. You're going to get it at some point in the future. So let me give you a quick formula that you can use when it comes to answering this question. So what you're going to do is you're going to share with them. And again, I also like to look at this as like a quick pitch. So like a 30-second pitch that you can give someone. If you don't yet have this question nailed down, this is one that you have to get nailed down, and you have to practice in front of people or practice to yourself until it becomes super natural and not a rehearsed response, right? So the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to tell them where you are in your career now. So when they say, tell me about yourself, you could start off with, well, currently I'm whatever. Okay. You're going to tell them exactly where you are now. Then you're going to tell them, how did you get there? So you could say, currently I'm doing this. Previously I was doing this. Or you could even say, I ended up in this current role that I'm in because of this. Okay, whatever it is. Number one, you're going to tell them where you are now. Number two, you're going to tell them how you got there. Number three, now this is a 4-part formula that I'm sharing with you. Number three, you're going to tell them, why are you so passionate about the position or the industry? Okay, so it doesn't matter that what position you're interviewing for, or you met someone in an elevator, you met someone at a conference, you met someone at a job fair. It does not matter. You met someone at the grocery store that could potentially put you in touch with your new job. Wherever you are, you're following this 4-step system, or my 4-part formula. Where you are now, how did you get there? Number 3, why are you passionate about it? So what makes you why are you even like interviewing for these jobs? Okay. And then number 4, how does this position relate to your goals and aspirations? So again, you're now talking about, I'm interviewing for this position. I want to basically stick around for a while because I really like this industry and this position. I'm very passionate about it. But how does that relate to your future? Like how does that relate? Like you plan to do this and this and this in the future, whatever that might be. So again, the 4-part formula, I'm going to share it. Maybe next time I do this, an interview training again, I'll share a slide with you. But for now, number 1, where you are in your career. Number 2, how did you get there? Number 3, why are you so passionate about the position you're applying for or the industry? And then number 4, how the position relates to your goals and your aspirations. So hopefully that gives you guys some good, solid information to move forward into your next job interview. I also want to know one more time, what's your biggest takeaway? Now that you know the 5 questions or question types that you need to be ready for in 2020, what is your biggest takeaway so far from this live stream? And again, if you have not yet grabbed the toolkit, I have my Valentine's shirt on for you today, and we are having our Valentine's Day flash sale until Friday. So you have 3 days to grab it. For a very special Valentine's Day flash sale. Tori's popped the link a bunch of times into the chat. I can see that. Again, make sure you guys are popping your questions in because I am going to spend a couple minutes answering questions that you might have. I do want to get to your question, Steve, about why should you not work here? We'll get to that in just a second. And I'll actually address that one first. But if you guys have not yet grabbed the toolkit, this is a quick, easy resource that you can download today. Again, remember, we've added 3 new bonus videos to this. These are videos that are not out there online. They are just for my toolkit and World Class Career Academy students. Let me show you really quickly again the fantastic, cute little images that we did for you guys so you can see what's in there. all the templates, all the resources that you have, the bonuses again, to help you get started with LinkedIn, to get your cover letter ready. And if you're just down in the dumps about your job search, the ultimate guide to surviving your job search. And then we also have the 3 bonus video lessons to help you use the toolkit properly and to get the most out of it. So let's jump into questions really quick. Now, I want to answer your question first, Steve, when it comes to, and Steve sent me an email the other day and said, I got this question in an interview. Why do you not want to work here? Have you guys ever had that question before? It drives me crazy when interviewers ask these types of questions. If you're an interviewer and you're listening or watching this, please don't ask questions like that. It's so hard already for the candidate in the position, interviewing for the job. It's almost like it's a trick question. Like you're saying, well, why would you ask that question? I'm sitting in front of you. Obviously, I want to work here. So this is how I would actually counterbalance that question. I wouldn't even tell them like why you don't want to work here. I would almost start it as, well, I've never considered why I wouldn't want this position. And I would almost counterbalance it with why you want to work there. So you're almost like saying, well, yeah, okay, great. But I'm here and I want to be here and I want this position. So I would just say, well, I've never considered that. If it's something, that you never considered, I don't even think it's a question you necessarily need to prepare for, but just say, I never considered the reasons why I wouldn't want to work here. And then I would talk about why you want to work here. So again, this goes back to what is the company's mission? What's their vision? What are their core values? Speak to that in the interview. And what about the position relates to your strengths? So on and so forth. So again, that's how I would answer that question, Steve. So I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, let's jump into the other questions really quick. I'm surprised I haven't had a cough attack. I was on the phone with a client last week and I coughed for 10 minutes straight. I was really embarrassed. I felt really bad. Like, I'm so sorry. Okay. Looks like Kevin came out of the gate with a really good question. Kevin, I'm going to answer your question. If you left your current role, like a senior leadership role, how do you positively position the transition in your next interviews? Okay, so Kevin, this is going to be unique to whoever, unique to your situation. So if you've left a role, there's a reason why, and you're wondering about how to positively position the transition. I guess without a little bit more context, I'm not sure how to position it. If you left due to you leaving, or if the company was doing a reduction of force or whatever that might be, the thing that you have to remember in any interview that you go into, you are speaking to how you match that position. So what skills, what qualities, what qualifications, what experience do you have that specifically matches up to that position? So even if you were terminated or if you've been out of work for a while, it doesn't matter. If you can speak to how great you are and how you match that position, a lot of times the employer is going to be wowed by that, right? And you mentioned senior leadership. Talk about your leadership skills. Again, we've talked a lot about on this channel about hard and soft skills. What we're finding now, hard skills are great and they're very quantifiable. But what we're finding now is that companies are looking for people that have really good soft skills, because a lot of employees going into the job market, yeah, they have all these great skills, but can they communicate well? Do they have a good personality? Are they going to follow direction? Can they lead a team? So again, I would speak to that. Good question, Kevin. Sylvia, phone interviews are hard. Oh, they are definitely hard. How can I stay calm? I think is what you're meaning. How can I stay calm during an interview? So I have a really, really, really good video about phone interviews. In fact, I also did a live training about that. Tori, if you can grab the link to the phone interview video, that would be so fantastic. I talk a lot about prepping ahead of time for your phone interview, finding a nice quiet place, a lot of really good tips to help you ahead of time so that when you go into the interview, you're not as freaked out, right? So again, I'm a 100% believer that if you prep as much as you can ahead of time, it will relieve a lot of those interview day jitters. Levy, I think that's how you say your name. Oh, wait, question. Kevin, sorry, there's a question from another Kevin. I have an employer asking me to conduct a video introduction. Good idea. Yes, if they want you to do a video introduction, you have to do one. Now, when it comes to the video introduction, this is how I would tell you to structure it. If you didn't hear the response that I gave about the tell me about yourself interview question and the 4-part formula that I shared, go back into the training and find that spot. I would share that exact 4-part formula. I would develop a response for that, rehearse it, practice it, all that good stuff. And then what I would do is I would film yourself. Now, when it comes to filming yourself, I actually have another video. Tori, if you can find this one too, hopefully if you can find the video interview one. And if not, I might even be able to find it really quickly. But there is another video about video interviews. I would use those same principles. So again, making sure you're in front of a window or you have good lighting, that the camera, you're not blurred out, that that they can hear you really well. So all that sort of stuff. So I would put those 2 and 2 together to do the formula that I gave for the tell me about yourself question, and then the video interview. If you can find that video, and hopefully Tori will pop it in soon. If not, I'll link all these things below that I'm talking about, and then you can grab that and know how to do your video introduction. I think that's great. I think a lot of companies are actually wanting that type of stuff. So, okay, Levy says, I'm feeling very confident about tomorrow's interview. Good. My question is, how do I make sure that I do not end up sounding too confident? Okay, I get this question a lot. And here's what I like to say about being too confident and egotistical, right? In an interview, you have to approach an interview like you're the product, you're selling yourself. And it's going to sound strange. Like when I start working with clients and they're just starting that interview process, it's a little bit awkward. But as they go through and they're interviewing more and they're meeting with more people about themselves and they're meeting random people off the street and talking to them about themselves, it becomes more natural. Now you'll know because you'll kind of give your own personal gauge if I'm talking too much about myself, or am I, am I bragging too much? I would say to come up with some good stories that show some of the qualifications or some of your talents. But it's kind of hard when you're starting the interview process. You're just going to be talking about yourself and maybe rehearsing the responses to questions, and maybe even, asking a family member or a friend to be like, hey, can you ask me a couple interview questions? And I'll tell them to you, like I'll tell you what I would say in an interview. But I think interviews are challenging in that way, in that you do need to sell yourself, but you don't want to be overly confident. So I would just say practice, make sure you're prepared. And I wouldn't really even think about it, honestly. Good question though. I know that's a tough one. Okay, Kevin, how do you address comments after a question stating that you are overqualified? Okay, this is a good question. So I did a video about this a couple weeks ago, in December, I think, where I talked about it, like being overqualified or underqualified. I'll also link that video up for you as well. I always tell my clients and my students, when you are working with, if you're going on an interview, I always say, if they told you you don't get the job or whatever, ask them why. And sometimes they say you're overqualified. So I have a really good kind of couple exercises for you to go through. What you have to look at is, we want to make sure that your age, either you're too young or you're too old, it doesn't matter, or you're qualifications, you're not qualified enough or you're overqualified. We want to make sure your experience and your talent and your age and all that stuff is a benefit. So we don't even want to focus on this is not a benefit. We're directing it all toward like, hey, yeah, my years of experience, my wisdom, what I've seen, the problems I've solved, I'm going to be a lot faster at solving problems. I'm definitely going to be a lot more efficient. You're now looking at how can your experience be the benefit. So we don't even want to focus on I'm overqualified or whatever that might be. So I have a really good video about that as well. Brenda, you guys have so many good questions. Oh my goodness. Okay, Brenda, hello, Brenda says, how do I describe a weakness? Oh, I think we covered your question earlier. Eli, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Oh, okay, this is a tough one, Eli. So here's what I would do in your situation. If you're asked this question, and yes, you have to mention it, right? What I would do in this situation is this is where your network is going to be big time for you. You need to dive into people that know you, that know your work ethic, that know that you're a hard worker, that know that you can get the job done. And it's almost like you need to use them or have them help you land that next position. Because yes, things like this happen. Life happens, things get in the way, and we need to find positions and companies and people that are willing to say, yeah, you know what, you messed up, and that's okay. Like, you made a mistake. I'm sure you've learned from it. Let's move on. I'm sure you can do this fantastic job, right? So again, that's where your network is really, really, really going to be super important, Eli. Good question. Amelia, is it worth it to use the keywords, I'm not sure why I said that. The keywords of the job posting when talking about the key strengths? Yes, definitely use the keywords. Now, I did a video a couple weeks ago about writing a resume for 2020. And I mentioned this a little bit, and I said, you are speaking to the company's jargon. So when you go into the interview, if you're talking about the exact words they are mentioning in the job posting, they are thinking to themselves, oh, hey, this person knows our company. They know what we're looking for. They have a good understanding of our company culture. So yes, 100%. Anna, hello. I haven't seen you for a while. So glad that you could make it today. Anna says, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right. It's not Anna. How do you answer that question when you've been out of work for some time? Okay, this is like your gap, right? So again, what we want to focus on here is, even though you might have been out of work, is there something else that you've been doing? Maybe you've been volunteering in the community. Maybe you started community education or continuing education. Maybe you started a volunteer position. Whatever that might be, employers are always trying to find out, what are you doing now? Like, they want to know what your most recent experience is and how does that apply to the new position you're applying for. So you want to make sure you're focusing on what you're doing now. And even if you're not doing anything, go do something, okay? Like volunteer, continuing education, like I mentioned, anything like that can show them that, yeah, although I've been out of work for some time, this is what I've been doing to keep my skills fresh. Maybe you took an online course. Maybe you've learned a new skill. That kind of stuff is really, really beneficial. Good question. Amelia, it's not about yourself, but what might important... oh, shoot, I'm not sure if I understand your question. Okay, I think what you're asking, Amelia, is what's important about yourself, like that they need to know, I think is what you're saying. And again, let me just kind of preface this question. It all depends on the job, okay? You are going to go into every job, any interview, and you're specifically talking about that job. And how does your experience relate to that job? Now, you might have a set of, I get clients where they'll get their interview scheduled and they might have like 2 interviews on a Monday, an interview on a Wednesday, and another interview on a Thursday, which is fantastic. Okay. That's kind of how you'd love to build out your schedule, right? If you're a job seeker. Now, you're going to use slightly different responses for every interview. They're going to generally be the same because you don't want to stress yourself out. But at the same time, you need to customize your answers to each company and each position. Good question. Katie, hello. So glad that you could make it. Katie says, Heather, what about if you are doing something completely different from the job you're applying, even though you have a little bit experience? I get this question a lot too. And here's what I recommend doing. If you're doing something that's a little bit different than the job you actually want, you're still going to tailor everything that you're doing to that new job. So, and you said you have a little bit of experience. And then you're going to really focus on that little bit of experience. So on your resume, when you're in your interviews and your LinkedIn profile, maybe even your cover letter, you're going to speak to the little bit of experience that you have that almost makes it seem like you've got a lot of experience, right? And then not only that, you're going to focus on transferable skills. I know you guys have probably heard me say this before, but transferable skills are those things that they apply to both jobs, okay, or both industries. So then you can start coming up with career stories that speak to those transferable skills so that they're not even focusing on the job you're doing now and how different it is. They're saying, oh, you're doing this now, and these are all the similarities. And that's pretty cool. Like that shows that you can do this job. Plus, not only that, Katie, you also want to focus on your passion for the position. Because if you go in, and this has happened to me so many times, if you go into a job interview and I've interviewed for positions that I just was not qualified for. I had no business being there. Don't ask me where I got thinking I could land the job. And I went in and I showed them my passion. I spoke with excitement. I had good body language in the interview. I was super excited to be there. I was like, yeah, this job is for me. And they hired me. And it's because I had the passion and the enthusiasm. So focus on that as well. Greg, hello. Let's see, where do I hang my resume? Not LinkedIn, for instance. Heather said even networking is most important. Yes. And I'm not sure what you mean by hang your resume. I think what you're meaning is where can I put it? You definitely don't want to upload it to LinkedIn. Don't ever do that. If any of you have your resume uploaded to LinkedIn, take it down now. What I would recommend, Greg, is what I think is going to be super important for you is networking. Again, I know we've talked a lot about that, but really making sure that you're getting in touch with the right people, for the right positions. And here's a cool thing. I actually read this study last week that talked about kids moving in, from college and high school and into the working world. And they talk about how most of our connections to jobs don't come through our really personal best friends. I have a group of 4 girlfriends. We're all best friends. They've been my best friends since 6th grade. Okay. They're not necessarily the people I'm going to reach out to be like, hey, can you put me in touch with these jobs? But outside of my 4 best friends, right? We have other friends and we have other people that we know. Those acquaintances are the people that I'm going to be getting in touch with. That's what they have found where job seekers excel the most is when they reach out to they call them their acquaintances, right? They're not your best friend or your really close connections, but they're connections outside of that. That's what I would say, Greg, would be a really fantastic place for you to focus and making sure that you're getting your resume to those people and letting them know what types of positions are you looking at. Of course, again, this is where LinkedIn comes into play. And yes, networking is one of the most important. Okay, we have a couple more minutes, so I am going to kind of skim through these questions as fast as I can. Let me remind you guys, whoever is still here with me today live, it looks like we have a bunch of you still here with me. If you have not yet seen the Valentine's flash sale for the Toolkit, make sure you take a look at that. Tori provided a link in the chat. We'll also place a link in the comments when the live stream ends today. So a couple more questions that I want to get to. These are really good ones. Someone says, what is ever a good answer to how you got there? So if you're in a jobless position for a position of over 3 months. So here's the good thing about having a gap is if it's under 6 months, it's normally not going to be a huge concern. Now, I always advise my clients and my students, if you can stay in that position and find the other position while you're still employed, that's definitely going to be your best route. Okay, that's plan A. If plan A does not pan out and you've got to jump into a plan B, where now you are not staying in this position, you were laid off, you left, whatever that might be, then you need to focus on, well, I'm not working right now. What can I be doing though right now that if they ask me, what am I doing? You don't want to be like, oh, I'm binge watching Netflix, right? Or I'm binge watching YouTube videos, or I'm doing nothing, like, and I get it. Job seeking is almost a full-time job. I totally 100% get it. But at the same time, you also need to place not just job seeking at the top of that list, but what can you be doing on your free time that relates to that job? Can you volunteer? Can you take an online course? Can you go walk into the office building? Can you start emailing people for informational interviews? Whatever that might be to keep moving you forward. Now, a 3-month time frame is not going to be a huge issue, but yeah, let them know. Oh yeah, I might not be working right now, but here is what I am doing so that I can land that job and I can start using my skills, my expertise, and my talents again because I have them, I have passion, I have energy, I'm ready to dive in. Okay, good question, Miranda. What questions do you ask the interviewer if they are in corporate, nowhere near the actual company? So I think what you're asking, Miranda, is just kind of questions that you can ask them. I have a really good video about questions to ask them. In fact, it's actually one of my favorite videos. Tori, if you can find that video as well. So I can't remember what I called it, but it's like questions to ask the interviewer. I think I share 5 questions and they are so good. And you can even take them apart and kind of make them your own. Okay, like if one of the questions is, I can't even remember what I listed in there. There's a bunch of them. But, I would always talk about team, like what type of team are you going to be working on? What does mobility look like? So how, without saying, oh, by the way, I want your position, or I want to move into leadership, like, yes, it can be known that you want to move into leadership, but like, what does that look like? What are projects you're going to be working on? Kind of like, what does a day look like in the life of this employee? I think those are all really good questions. Okay, someone asked, any tips for those already working somewhere as a contractor going for a permanent position? Yes, just keep at the job search. You want to stay in that contract position again because that's super valuable. It shows that you're doing something. Again, this is part-time, contractor, freelance, any type of work you can get, even if it's not full-time, get it. And then keep looking for your permanent position. And you're going to approach it just like a normal job seeker would. You're working part-time or contract or whatever it might be. And then on your off hours, you are not watching Netflix, not watching YouTube, but you're looking for a job and networking. Amelia, I have work gaps. How can I describe that? I think we talked about that question a little bit earlier, Amelia. So hopefully that helped you. Again, if you guys are still here with me, I would love to know what are some of your biggest takeaways so far. I know that we've been online together for almost an hour. We've had a lot of fantastic comments. I want to know, what are you learning from this? And is this type of live stream valuable for you? I like to either go live or I post a new video each week on my channel here. So I want to make sure that this is content that you need. If there's any content that you want me to cover in these live streams, let me know. But I want to know, for those that are here with me, hanging in tight, what are some of the things that you guys have learned today? Let's see. Okay, Isabel. Hello, Isabel. I had a job interview yesterday. Good, fantastic. When is it appropriate to contact the employer? I love this question. In which I interviewed for, I'm afraid to hold and not accept a position that I'm being offered now. Okay. Yes. Okay. So Isabel, if you have another offer on the table, you need to move forward with the other company as quickly as you can. You always want to follow up within 24 hours. So if you have not yet followed up, make sure you send a follow-up. Now, inside the toolkit, if you guys don't already have this, there are a number of follow-up templates that you can use. I have one for your interview follow-up, one for if you had a phone interview, how do you follow up with that? One for if you haven't heard back from a job that you applied for. I even have a template in there. And again, remember, these are not just random templates out there online. These are proven templates that work for job seekers that I actually developed with a team of people that are professionally written. I have a template in there for if you're a job seeker and you were rejected from the job. What do you say? Because you want to try and keep the door open. If the company's hiring, chances are they're going to be hiring more. Or what if that person they hired just doesn't work out after 2 weeks? Can they still reach back out to you? And so I have templates for all of that. But yes, within a 24-hour period, Isabel. Also, you said that you're afraid to hold and not accept a position that I'm being offered. The other position, you're going to have to move forward with this one that you just interviewed with, and then try and let the other company know, I'm entertaining other offers right now and I'll be in touch. And don't be afraid to do that. Rodolfo, hello, says, why do you want to change? Let's see. Why do you want to change your job, or why do you want to leave? Oh, this is a good one. I actually have a video coming out about this exact topic. It probably won't be out for another month or so, but all of us want some sort of career advancement. Not all of us, but a lot of us want some sort of career advancement, right? We all want to be able to move forward in our lives. We don't want to necessarily be stagnant. So don't be afraid to talk about I'm just ready for new opportunities. I'm ready. I'm very happy where I'm at and it's fantastic, but I'm ready for something new. I'm ready to use my skills in this area. And I know that your company would be the best place for me to do that. Or I know this position would allow me to really use my skills to help you solve these problems and whatever. Don't be afraid to answer that question in an interview. We all have, as human, it's human nature. We're always setting goals. We're always trying to move forward. So at least that's how I like to look at it. Good question. Spunky, love your screen name, says, what if you get asked, what are your salary expectations? Okay, so good. This is another question I get a ton. And of course, I have a couple videos already on this. Let's see. Oh, I actually did one recent. So I think I have 3 different plus a live training on this exact topic. Tori, if you can find that video and pop that into the chat, that'd be so good. And I know we're going to finish up here in just a second, guys. But when it comes to salary expectations, make sure you're always negotiating. Okay. Make sure that that you want them to be able to give you the first offer. You don't want to ever tell them up front unless they pressed you 3 or 4 times, which some people will. Some recruiters will do that. Try and hold off and get them to tell you what their salary expectations are. Never give a range. I'm always a big believer of giving the exact number, and that exact number is going to be the number that I'm not going to accept this job. Well, okay, that's not true. What I would say here is I would say you know in your head the exact number that I can't accept this job for this amount, but then you also have your dream job number, your dream salary. That's the number that I would give them if it comes to it. But I have a really fantastic resource for you that I think the video is pretty recent. Okay, addicted to diving. Awesome. Is that diving? Is that skydiving? Or I could never do that. Anyway, what if you got laid off from a previous job? What do you tell them? Well, you can't, it's not anything that you can hide from. So my recommendation is that you tell them that you got laid off, but without, you want to focus on really your skills and expertise, of course, in the interview. But if they ask you what happened, you have to be honest with them, but then come back with, my skills and my expertise and my experience match up to this position because of this. So if they want to talk about that, you're going to nice and politely answer the question, but then bring it back to how are you such a good fit for the position that they are interviewing for. Okay, could you please explain about long gaps? Okay, I do have a training. I did a live training exactly on this this entire concept about long gaps. Again, I get, because I work with people from all over the world where they had to take time off for a sick parent, and it could have been like 1 year or maybe 2 years. I work with individuals that are moms like me, and they took time off to get their kids like out of diapers, right? And get them into school. So there's a lot of instances in life where this can happen. My recommendation again is always be doing something and then focus on what you've been doing. So if you did have to take time off for a sick parent, were you able to like do any continuing education courses during that time, or were you able to do any of that? If not, I would say start now on anything that you can to start building your skills up again. And then the second thing I would say to that, I know I keep saying this to you guys, but make sure that you are focusing on your network. I know we've talked a lot about that. Okay, I'm going to take a couple more questions here, and then I will see you guys again in a live stream in a couple weeks or so. So any questions or anything else that you guys want me to cover on my channel, make sure you pop it into the chat. I always love learning what content you like, and what really is helping you move forward in your job search, building your personal brand, landing that dream job faster, growing in your career that you love. I truly believe that we all can find work that we love and grow in a career or in a field that we love. So again, that's my whole goal for this channel. If you have any concepts or topics that you want me to cover, please let me know. Okay, I'm going to answer just a couple more questions here. Okay, let me try and pick someone I haven't. Okay. Someone says, I have 15 years of experience, but I also have done a lot of, I think you mean contract jobs that are not very long standing. How would I answer a question when asked why I switched so many employers? Excuse me. So what I think with this one is, I would just focus on, and this is where you could also even think of like doing kind of like a combination resume example where you're listing more of like the industry you've worked in, and you're focusing on the industry and the experience in that industry rather than each position. If they ask you about switching jobs, it used to be frowned upon a lot more than it is now. For example, like for me, my generation, we still love to stick with the same thing for like 10, 15, 20 years, right? My parents were even more so like that. I see my kids and even the younger generations, if they're in something for a year or two and they don't like it, a lot of times they just leave, and they don't feel that same loyalty. So I don't think it's as big of an issue as it used to be, but I would just focus on your industry experience as a whole rather than each position. I like that question though. Okay, Amelia, what do you expect from the company? I'm wondering if you're asking this question in terms of the, like they ask you that. So in the interview, they're asking you, what do you expect from the company? My thought would be, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. So make sure you know before you even go into the position. Again, you're going to know the position, the company, missions, values, so on and so forth. And I actually like this question, and I don't get it a lot, and I haven't talked a lot about it, but I like it because it allows you to really think about, well, if this company is not meeting their end of the bargain, sort of like the question I answered earlier, would I leave? Like, would I leave this job? So I think it's good. I would actually be excited to hear if other employers are asking this question, because it's almost like a two-way commitment, right? And they want to make sure they're meeting their end of the bargain. If you're going to be coming there, you're going to be putting in your time, you're going to be putting in your energy every day. Like, what do they need to do to be able to fill that fill their end of the bargain. So what types of things does that company need to provide you for you to be a happy employee? Now, companies want happy employees because it means they produce more, they decrease costs, they increase revenue, all that fun stuff. So I actually like this question. If you ever got this in an interview, that's a good sign because it shows that they are thinking about you and what would meet your needs. Good questions, guys. Oh, thank you so much, everyone, for sticking around for this long with me today. We had a fantastic live stream. My voice is starting to go. So we had a fantastic live stream. I will be back again on my channel next week, pretty close to the same time. We'll be live again in a little while. Again, don't forget about the flash sale for the Career Advancement Toolkit if you have not yet grabbed it, or if you want to make sure that you're moving forward faster in your job search, make sure you take a look at that. Again, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me and giving me ideas for what you want to see here on this channel in the future. And again, I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in with me today.